Welcome to Vibe Coding. So what is vibe coding? We'll get into that in a little greater detail. First, I want to just talk about the word vibe. The word vibe, a good feeling. It is sometimes a feeling of elation, and sometimes it's a description of getting along. Like me and my friend, we were like meant to be friends because we totally vibe. That's the context in which I understand vibe coding. Vibe coding is the process of using natural language prompting to an AI tool to develop applications that can stand alone. And in this case, we're going to be looking at applications that use AI to solve a problem or address some topic or issue that we as instructors would like to do or have our students do. Advance, please. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to start with an introduction to vibe coding. We're going to talk about the benefits and purposes as I see vibe coding in our context. We're also going to talk about the limitations of vibe coding, and there are many. We'll talk about the process of doing vibe coding, and we're going to talk about some common problems that if you attempt vibe coding, you're going to run across and have to deal with. We'll have the demonstration, and then you're going to have time to try vibe coding right here live using the same tool that we're going to be demonstrating with. Next. First of all, vibe coding, natural language prompting to create AI apps or to create apps. There are many, many tools available for this purpose, and these all use AI to create code, computer code, in a variety of forms. It might be code for a website. It might be a code in a programming language that works with databases. So there are many different tools for many different purposes. We're going to be using Google AI Studio. The reason we're going to be doing that is because Jackson College has a contractual relationship with Google to provide this service to us. And your single sign-on, the same sign-on that you use for your email, will get you access to this tool. Here's a list of them. We'll provide this PowerPoint, so if you want to try any of those, you can certainly do that. You can also just do a search for vibe coding tools, and you will get even more than this. Next, please. All right, so what are the benefits and purposes of vibe coding here in the context of Jackson College? First of all, this is a great way to learn more about AI. Vibe coding will teach you how to interact with AI better than you already do in most cases, because you're attempting to use AI to create something, and it's something that's quite complex. So you're going to learn better ways of structuring your prompts to the AI. You're going to learn to understand, we can say this, understand how AI thinks and processes the prompts that you give it. And then you're going to develop better prompting habits intentionally and by accident. So that's the first thing I think about this. This is a great way to learn about AI. I think it's also a great way to learn about AI in that by doing this, you're going to begin to understand what the future holds for AI, not just in higher education, but for the world. And it's astounding, it really is. The first time that I did this, and it worked, I had to get up and take a walk just to process it, because it's mind expanding, mind blowing a little bit, when you understand the potential this has, but also you understand the ramifications, both good and bad, for the power that this kind of capability in anyone's hands holds. Vibe coding is great for rapid prototyping. So if you happen to be a developer, this is a great way to test out some ideas. Now, we'll talk a little bit in the limitations why you might not want to go right immediately into production with something like this. But if you want to just try something out and you don't want to spend money on a programmer, or if you're a programmer and you want to save yourself time, this is a great way to do that. And then I think for our context here, this is a great way for an instructor to create simple tools for low stakes use. I wouldn't use an AI app created in this way to do final grading of essays, although you could design one that would do that. I wouldn't do that because it's not quite trustworthy yet, not quite reliable enough. So as a teacher, especially an online teacher, I'm always looking for ways to get my students to engage with my course and also to understand how my course is relevant in the real world. So anytime I'm reading, I see a news article or a current event, I'll send that off to my students and say, hey, everybody, this is what I saw in CNN today, and look how it relates to what you're studying. But sometimes I don't have something in my pocket. So I said, what if I used AI to find current events, write up a little summary, and I could just copy and paste that and send it out to my students and say, hey, check this out. Or I could put it into a discussion forum and say, let's have a discussion about this use of AI in this discipline or something like that. So I'm working on something like that. I think that's a great way of using a tool like this. Another thing, Larry, I know you've worked on some tutoring systems. This would be something I would try in a tutoring way because of the way it works. You are able to create a very meticulously crafted prompt. You don't have to rely on the students to feed that into their AI. And it does allow you more configuration and more control over the AI as the students use the tool that you create. So that would be a great example of what to do. All right, so now let's talk about some limitations and some potential downsides of vibe coding. So AI coding is often flawed. There are errors in the coding that will prevent the app from working properly. There are errors in the AI's ability to interpret your desire such that the function that it provides does not meet your original request, and you have to do iterative coding or iterative prompting to correct that, or sometimes you have to start all over again. I find the AI's visual design to be boring and not that good, so I would want to spend a lot of time working with that. If I was trying to do something, especially on a commercial scale, but for my use and for my students' use, I think it's fine. And then there are potential security issues. I would not, at this time, download one of these tools and host it on my website because there are potential safety issues, potential security issues that I don't understand coding well enough to determine for myself, and I don't trust the AI to do this well. All right, so just be aware that we're not trusting this. Understand that there are security issues that could compromise a website or so on, because we're not professional coders, and AI isn't yet either, especially at this level. Okay, next. All right, here's the process overview. You're going to describe your desired function. You're going to create a prompt. Examples help, and AI can help. You're going to test and modify, debug problems first before advancing to try to build new features. Always save the first working version you get so you can easily recover to that, because as you attempt to manipulate the process, manipulate the effect of your prompting on the AI, sometimes it will stray and it will do something totally unpredictable. You just go, I want to go back to my original idea and just start fresh. So starting fresh is a good idea. It doesn't cost you anything, so it's not a problem. And do one change at a time. Sometimes I'll try to do 2 small changes, but if you're working on debugging, try 1 change at a time in your prompting. Don't be afraid to start over. And then when you're ready to use this, you can use this right into AI Studio. So the tool that we will use to do vibe coding, you have access to that. You can use it, no problem. If you want to deploy this, something that you would give access to your students, then there's a charge possible associated with that in order to move your AI tool into the Google Cloud. Let's go on next. Here are some common problems. AI gets confused. I'm sure that you've experienced that if you've used AI. AI confusion, AI amnesia, all sorts of things can happen. The correction for that is revise the prompt, change the prompt, try it again. There are coding errors. Sometimes as you will, and it's really fascinating to watch the code develop. It's kind of like something from the Matrix. But sometimes the tool itself will say, unexplained error, auto-correcting, and it will attempt to auto-correct. Sometimes it just says, I'm stuck. And then I found that there are times when you can provide a prompt to check this to make sure it works, and that prompt will get it to re-engage with error correction and sometimes work. Sometimes you just have to start over again. Sometimes there's a problem with the tool displaying the preview of your app, and I found that is associated with a couple things. One, the AI gets confused, but also make sure that you have restarted your machine, restarted your browser, provide maximum resources for the system, and use the Chrome browser. I found that works well. And then once you get to the point where you want to deploy this, you launch it into the Google Cloud services. I've seen that fail. It launches, It gives you the URL, you go to it, but then when you try to use it, it says fails to connect. First problem I've seen is there is a lag between it telling you it's ready and it actually being set up on the back end. Wait an hour and that usually goes away. But I've also seen that happen like all day long. It seemed like the service was down. The next day, it worked fine. So it's not anything that you can fix. Sometimes just waiting is the solution. And then I have had a situation where I've made corrections and relaunched the app. So that caused it to redo its programming on the back end up in the Google Cloud, and that seemed to work. So that's kind of a process of what you can do when you encounter these kinds of common problems. Now, I differentiate a problem from the app doesn't do what I want it to do. A lot of times that's mostly your prompt, not any problem with the AI. The AI is functioning pretty well. We have to do better prompting. Next. All right, so speaking of prompting, just like when you're using generative AI, ChatGPT or Gemini, it's always good to create a structured prompt that includes the role. You act as an expert and then describe what that expertise is. Advance at least. The next thing is give it a goal. Your purpose. Purpose is another word for goal. Your purpose or your goal is to, and then describe what it is in big picture terms, what it is you want it to do. Next, your task is to tell it explicitly. You are to do this. And then if you want to, you can stop there, but if you want to, advance please, you can also go to process. First do this, second do that, third do that. And then the last thing is, if you're working on something that you want very specific output, an example helps. So like in the case I gave you where I want a relevancy generator, I would go find an article that I said, this is the kind of article I would find, here's what I would write about it, and here's how I would structure it. So then I give that example to the AI in my prompt. So that's always a good idea too. And then of course, advance. You can use AI to help you create the prompt, and this works great. This will create, your AI will create a very precise prompt if you tell it, act as an expert in Google AI Studio as your very first part of the prompt to that generative AI. And that's what I would encourage you to do if your goal is to produce a usable app. However, if your goal is to learn more about AI, it's fun to just vibe code, just sit there and get along with the AI and just talk, just chat it out and have it develop things. Play with your prompting, develop better prompting skills, and then remember, you can always close it and start fresh. I can turn the camera off, and that's all we have to say about vibe coding today. I hope next time you can join us to actually do vibe coding. Using the Google AI Studio to create an app. Here's the Google AI Studio. I won't go over all of the features of this right now. I just want to draw your attention to the chat area. And this is where you will interact with your AI programmer. I've already created a prompt that I want to copy and paste into my AI code generator. So let me go to that. This is a design called the Relevance Engine. I'm instructing it to act as a research librarian. I've given it a goal of helping professors create course materials that will help them make connections between their discipline or course topic in the real world. Your task is to accept a text entry, find a relevant news article, then use the article to create an enticing one-paragraph summary that the instructor can share with the students. Then I have a process. Accept the text entry, conduct a web search or find an event from a credible source, then generate the output using this format. Engaging title for item, clickable URL for source, engaging topic sentence that recruits attention, short engaging summary, then up to 3 sentences that connect the item to the topic or discipline that was provided by the user. I'm going to copy that, and now I'm going to paste it into the Google AI Studio. Confirm that it did copy and paste, and now run the prompt. This will take 2 or 3 minutes, but we'll see as we progress how the app constructs its engagement with the topic, and then how it creates the coding here in the middle section before it finally creates the app. My app has now been constructed, and I can test it and use it right here in the Google AI Studio. Let's check out something for math. I'm going to reduce the Google AI Studio view to just be the app view. So here I chose math as a topic that I wanted to find something about. The AI Copilot for Math Discovery. Here's a link to the resource at darpa.mil. Imagine a future where the most complex mathematical challenges are tackled not by brilliant human minds, but by artificial intelligence working alongside them. Here's a summary, and then a classroom connection. So as an instructor, I could use this as a prompt in a discussion forum, or I might use this in Canvas messaging or an email in order to provide an input for students about the topic, helping them to connect my topic with the real world and hopefully creating some relevance for them. And it also begins initiating conversations with students.